Good evening, everybody. My name is Cassandra. Welcome to Bombyx. Thank you for coming out on a chilly October evening. If this is your first visit here, I'm going to share a few flight attendant announcements so you know how to move around the building. So if you're looking for the restrooms, we're going to have a little bio break in the middle of this event, and you're going to go through this door to my left, your right, and down the hall. Both of our banks of restrooms are on the right-hand side. They're a little bit of a stroll, but this is your opportunity to stretch your legs after sitting for an hour. I also want to make clear that Bombyx does not endorse any candidate in this election for any role. However, we are really grateful to welcome these conversations in our space and provide opportunities for one-on-one, in-person dialogue, which is such a meaningful and deeply human way of learning from one another. So thank you for coming and being part of that. I also want to share a few agreements. I know this has been a very fizzy, frothy, spicy election to date. Yes. And we love that. It's so wonderful to have that kind of energy in our municipal elections. However, this evening, I do ask that you think about 3 different agreements that we can share tonight for how we conduct ourselves in this space. First, please listen to understand. Not to prepare your next witty remark, not to be the one to say that thing that you've been waiting for the whole night, but really just to take in what the candidates are saying. They've spent a lot of time thinking through their positions, and please let's make space for them to really communicate those messages to us so that we can hear them and understand. Second, this is an opportunity for dialogue between you and the audience and the candidates on stage. And at the same time, we only have a couple of hours tonight. So as you formulate your questions, please refrain from long-form storytelling. If you go on too long, Dan will start circling around you like a vulture and reach for that microphone. So just think about just think about how you can distill your question into the most clear, efficient, direct way of asking the thing that you want to know. And then, most of all, please be respectful of one another. We may not get all of our questions answered tonight. We may not be able to get into the minutia of a particular issue. So if we can just hold space to be comfortable with non-closure. This is an opportunity to gather some information. We will do the best that we can. This is a process, so please be kind to one another in that we are all learning together, and at the end of tonight, we will know more than we did when we first came in. It has been a pleasure to work with the fabulous Joan Barberich. She's been organizing this event and thinking about how to create this evening together. Please give her a round of applause as we welcome her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking time out of your life to be here. It's very meaningful. So I'm Joan Barberich, and I've lived in Northampton since 1987. And I voted all that time, except when I was out of country, so almost 40 years. And I have to be honest with you, most of the time, I voted rather ignorantly. If the circle or oval on my ballot was next to a man's name and a woman's name, and I didn't know, I'd just put the woman's name. Or if I had some vague recognition of the name. So I was voting, but I wasn't participating. And now, I will tell you, I am participating, and all of you are too. Because if you're here, it's because you know that your vote matters and that you want to use it well. And as I look at you, I'm aware that some of you might remember a time when your moms or your aunts did not have the right to vote, or when people of color did not have the right to vote. We probably don't remember when, if you did not own land, you did not have the right to vote. But the point is that this right, this thing that we have, from years, and many, many people working hard and long for it. And we have a responsibility to honor all of that work by educating ourselves. So let's get started. I'm going to pass you over to Dan Torres from WHMP. Dan lives in Amherst, so he is not vested in this election, and he is a very kind and friendly, neutral party.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dan Torres, and I am the producer of the radio show Talk the Talk and the host of the show Panorama, both of which air on WHMP. My presence here tonight does not mean that I or my employer, Northampton Media Group and WHMP, endorse any of the candidates speaking here tonight. I am simply here to facilitate a conversation with Northampton voters and those running for office in Northampton. Okay, so now some of the formats for tonight. So Joan and I need your help, actually. I am going to list 5 topics that we think are pertinent to Northampton voters, and we would like you to raise your hand if you want to hear the candidates answer questions about that topic, okay? Joan and I will pick the top 3 most popular topics and spend approximately 20 minutes on each topic. We will take a 15-minute bio break at around 6:55 p.m., and we will return at 7:10, approximately 15 minutes, and we can reconvene and discuss the third topic. The last segment of tonight, starting at around 7:30, we will have an open floor time where you get to ask the candidates anything you want as a voter in Northampton, okay? So, how does that sound? Sound good? Okay. So, okay. Oh, okay, wait, do you, we were supposed to decide together, so come over here. Okay, so, do you want to hear about Picture Main Street redesign tonight from the candidates? Okay. Oh. Okay, all right. Well, I let you vote as many topics as you want if you want to vote for all 5, but that's okay. Yeah. Do we do that in Northampton? I'm not so sure. East Hampton. That's a good question. Okay, fine. I will list all 5, and then I will go back to them, and you can vote. Okay, all right, we'll do that. That makes sense. Picture Main Street, okay. There's the Northampton schools and funding for the schools. City infrastructure like potholes, street lights, and the environment, like trees, parks, things like that. Affordable housing, housing in general, and municipal budgets and city council and mayoral relationship included in that administrative leadership at the city level. Okay? I know. We gave this a lot of thought, Joan and I. Yeah. So remember, at 7:30, the ask them anything you want a part of the night will be. So, okay, you heard all of the 5. Let's get your input. I already know how people feel about Picture Main Street. So the second one, Northampton schools and funding. Okay. How about city infrastructure, like potholes, street lights, and the environment? Affordable housing and housing? That's a big one. Okay, and municipal budget, city council, mayoral relationship.
Okay. That's, I think, 1, 2, and 4.
1, 2, and 4.
So Picture Main Street, schools and funding, and
I think we should go municipal budgets and city. Probably the last one.
okay.
Yeah, 1, 2, and 5.
So
Okay.
those will go deep in, and we still can go deep because there's this unstructured time for questions at the end,
So,
a long time.
So I'm going to hand over the mic. But okay, we're going to talk about I'll announce them before. But it's Picture Main Street, Northampton schools and funding, and then municipal budgets, city council mayoral relationship, and the administrative leadership of the city. Those are the three we'll spend approximately 20 minutes on, okay? Now, before I hand over the mic, I just want to go over quick guidelines here. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. I will hand over the microphone. If you can state your name and keep your question to 1 minute. And if you go over a minute, I'll walk over very slowly and ask for the mic back. So that way, we can get to everybody who has a question today, as many people as possible. But remember, starting at 7:30, you do get to ask anything you like. Candidates, we'll spend about 2 minutes answering your question. Approximately 1 or 2 candidates will answer the question that you have. Please speak directly into the microphone. There's a temptation to move it around. Please be courteous when you're asking your question. And just remember, we're going to do our best to get to everyone, but we might not. But remember, the last segment, ask anything, we'll pass the mic around, and I'll be a little bit more generous with the 1 minute. Okay? Does that sound okay? All right. So
the first topic
is Picture Main Street. All right. Do you have a question about Picture Main Street? I will bring over the microphone.
Hi, I just wanted to know why it is so important that the infrastructure, the pipes are being said that they have to be rolled into that big project. And a side question is that, can't we do that without tearing up the entire downtown?
Is this on? Oh, hi. So my understanding from our director of DPW is that the pipes need to be changed only because we may damage them during the project. Yeah. So I recommend more incremental changes that don't involve digging up Main Street.
Is there anyone else on the stage? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also, if that massively disruptive project were going to happen, it would be an opportunity to do that. And if you were going to dig anything up, you would not want to not replace them. But like at the rate-setting hearings, like 2 years in a row, it was said that the pipes are old but good. They're being replaced because of that construction above. So there hasn't been an independent that they would need it without that.
Do you want to talk? Mike?
I know this is more of a city council question, but the pipes thing was a fixation for me, and so I put in some record requests around this. And there's been no studies done that I've seen or have been reported where they've actually costed out what it would cost to do it independent of the project. So there's a general idea that's argued all the time, well, we're going to have holes anyway, so we should just put pipes in, it'll be cheaper. But no one's actually done the math. And the budget figure they keep saying, the FAQ of $3 million, just matches the ARPA money they set aside. But the actual cost estimate for this part of the project is closer to like 3.8 million, of which they'll use the difference from the enterprise fund, sewer and water, which is what it's for. But that estimate also hasn't been updated in a long time. So when they updated the last estimate, the project jumped by like 50%. So who knows how much the pipes will actually cost, and that's going to have to be paid for out of the enterprise fund or somewhere else. But we haven't actually had cost estimates that say this is going to be cheaper if we do it this way. It's just kind of this weird talking point, which who knows?
And just to add to it, what's interesting about this process is that when this plan was originally put in place, the monies that were put aside to pay for those pipes were estimated at $3.1 million, which happened to fit in with the ARPA money. But that was at the very beginning of the projection of what we got from Mass DOT, and while they've changed their projection by about more than $10 million, we haven't changed that figure since that original ARPA money. We did hear Councillor Jarrett tell us the other day that the ARPA money will be a boost to the amount of money that we'll pay for those pipes. And the Mass Department of Environmental Protection has only recently been working on what will be new dimensions for the pipes that we must put down. So originally they have 25, 50, and 100-year pipes. So we're going to have increased diameter for those pipes, and in doing that, it will require deeper excavation. And that's going to have to be worked out with Mass DOT and their general figures as well. We're still going to have to pay for the pipes ultimately, but I don't know about you, the pipes in my street are pretty old too. So there's some challenges.
Okay.
Thank you.
Picture Main Street. Any questions?
Claudia. But for the people at home, if you don't mind speaking into
I
here.
think one of the issues around this is the conflict between fixing downtown and fixing the rest of the city. So, and I feel like that involves the vision that we have of what the city should be, our small town really. So could people speak to that, please?
Can I go first? Hi, everyone. So yes, Claudia, to your point, I've been door knocking. I've been a business owner downtown. I ran the Downtown Northampton Association. And so many folks do feel the way that you feel, that there's a huge, we're spending a lot of time on downtown when there's infrastructure all over. But I'm going to pass the mic to Meg because she actually has some really good ideas about how we can build out business, and I talk a lot about bringing on a dedicated economic development director to do this, but also to spread, the wealth around how we are fixing the infrastructure around town. I think it's cyclical in terms of rising, bringing more tax revenue through our local receipts revenue, but really building out these microcosms, which Meg talks about back in the day, which I'll, hand this off to her, when there were little shops and little microcosms all over the city. So Meg.
Thanks a lot, Jillian. And actually, this is an idea. What we get from knocking on doors are great ideas from people in this city. And we've heard some really wonderful ones and some pretty bizarre ones. But the city's full of people who have expertise, who have good ideas and have really, they want to talk to somebody about it. They want to say, how come you didn't think about this? So this was an idea that came from a constituent who said she lived in Chicago when they were doing their downtown revitalization. And she was hired as, or worked as somebody who was supposed to track bicycles, pedestrian, and traffic. She did a shift several times a week from 5 to 11, then somebody did the next shift. And the goal was to figure out where people went, where they came from, and how they got there. But she said then the next push was really around saying, where are the centers in the city that people are going to? And that's the thing that maybe we're missing, which is we're driving all of our attention to downtown rather than saying, this is a city of villages. And we have a lot of different centers in those villages. Montview is one of them. Places where people gather, where there are schools. Used to be where there were churches, there were mom and pop stores on all of your neighborhoods. How can we bring that back to be a place where we can provide housing, we can provide bicycle paths, we can provide places for entertainment, and they're gathering community spots for the rest of the folks who live here, and not just a downtown that we're increasingly looking at for really the use of tourism.
Just to add my platform while you're getting over there, it's short. You go ahead. Okay. My platform is called Picture Side Streets, but like we talk about the sidewalks, that's a civil rights issue, right? Those have to be passable everywhere in the city. And so it's not a question of whether or not downtown deserves the attention. Downtown needs attention. It's being neglected, it's crumbling. But that's also true for many areas in the city, and they all need to be addressed, right?
I've got a two-part question. So one, pipes don't last forever, and I'm wondering if anyone has done any research on sort of a projection of how much longer those pipes can last in the ground. They're over 100 years old. And then the second part of that question is there any concern that if ARPA funding isn't used for this, it'll be more difficult to find federal and eventually state funding given the current conditions of things? And then one more part of that question is, are the ARPA funds able to be moved, or have they already been designated for that project, and would the city lose them if it's not used for this?
We can move ARPA money, we can move our money wherever we want. Yeah, we can.
No, we can't.
Well, hold on. on. Chris says no. Let's find out what Chris thinks.
Actually, no, the ARPA money cannot be moved. It may not even, there's some weird questions about deadlines for that, but no. I think one of the things that gets into there is that, okay, so that is what, was it 3 million or 1.5? I think that's 3 million of a roughly $30 million project. And I think one of the selling points of this is, oh, it's other people's money. But does spending supposedly other people's money, and it's really our money because we pay federal taxes, does spending other people's money on something that's not actually the right answer for our community, is that actually good, or have we just sort of let our decision-making be bought by this process? And I hope we'll get into a little bit later, but I don't think that what's proposed there is the right layout for this community. At some point, we will have to do some infrastructure work. One of the problems with our city government right now is that there's not very good communication between the administrative side of government and the city council. So you would think that a city councilor would be able to get information, but the reality is that the power of the city council is the whole body. And one city councilor doesn't really have any more legal access to information than you yourself do. So that, those information flows are usually a matter of courtesy, but courtesy can break down. And if there isn't cooperation and communication between the mayoral administration and the city council, then our government doesn't really function.
Shout out to Chris. I think he was the only one who noticed the ARPA money had some deadlines, and maybe the city also kind of violated those. I don't know. We'll talk about that another time if you're interested.
So they talk about making picture Northampton, beautiful, safe, and all that. Well, why don't they have raised crosswalks downtown? They have it all over a bunch of streets, all in Northampton. Grove Street, Riverside Drive, Florence Road. I'm left out a lot. I don't want to keep saying all of them. I think all you know. How come we don't have them downtown to slow traffic down? Because they keep saying, oh, we got to get rid of traffic. We got to slow traffic down. Other towns, East Hampton does it. A bunch of other towns do it. Why don't Northampton do it? Why doesn't the mayor do it? The other thing is, you go downtown, safety and all, you want to go and do some banking or whatever, and after you go get a slice of pizza, you want to sit down on a bench. You can't. You know why? Panhandlers are sitting on the bench. You can't. They're just selling their wares or they have their signs and all that. They're going to put benches up in the new picture of Northampton, And the other thing with Pulaski Park, years ago, not that long ago, they did that over because it was a drug haven and everything. Guess what it is? It's still a drug haven. The cops are there constantly.
Persons in need of services, people in need of services are not getting the services that they need. And whether you're coming at that from a side of having less compassion or more compassion for those people, we all agree that that's not happening, right? And we agree that giving a bunch of money to Eric Sewer for a building that's never going to be rehabbed is not a solution, right? So we're looking for how do we actually make downtown a place where we see that everybody downtown is thriving, that everybody downtown is having a good time.
I'll go Michele and then Jillian.
Yeah, and I would like to connect what Chris said about the ARPA money, what Coverly just said, where for the Resilience Hub, we did spend ARPA money for a project, right? One of the arguments that we hear is that, oh, yes, we spent on that building that is frankly unusable now, but the money wasn't ours. It was ARPA money. But guess what? We spent twice the money we should have, but it was not ours. So it's still taxpayers' money that we spent on a building that we cannot use, and we're not helping anybody. So if part of the reason why I'm running is because I see that how the administration has spent money, our money, but also city money, our money, but also money that comes from other sources, to basically get into projects that don't help the community, right? And now what happens is that for the Resilience Hub, we'll have to spend more money. We don't know what the operating cost will be. So if we could not plan properly and manage $3 million for the Resilience Hub, what are we going to do with 30 million? Are we going to spend 60 million? I'm sorry, I need to evaluate the results of certain actions and project for the future, right?
Thank you, Michele. Jillian?
Very well said, Michele. I'm going to bring us back to the question of, the downtown redesign and picture Main Street. And I've heard a lot of that as well about raised crosswalks. I've had some thoughts around safety, and I've discussed them with folks while I've been out on doors, including, aligning all the crosswalks. So my dad's from Chicopee. He's always coming in to watch my son. We don't really have rules of engagement downtown for folks who don't live here. We have a very pedestrian-friendly downtown. So for him, he's always like, who should I be looking for? What should I be doing? Should I be following cars? Should I be looking for people? And I think that, I've always thought to myself, why couldn't we align, how Main Street and King Street, everybody stops at the same time and everybody walks at the same time. We could, on the safety side, we could align all our crosswalks downtown in that way. But I think this is part of how we engage with our community, how we really understand from the ground up what people are experiencing who live here, what people who are working here are experiencing, and integrating those ideas into how we navigate these plans and projects and actually build them in a way that makes sense. And that's a piece that's really missing. And I think that looking at all these folks up here and the way that I move, that's what's going to really be a big shift in how we navigate city government, is that we are going to have these conversations. We are going to, I'd like to hire a communications director who can actually navigate the way we're communicating with folks in ways that they can actually understand what we're saying. So I think, it all comes back to that and how we're engaging and actually listening to people. So as you're, really thinking about how we do business now and how we could do business in a very different way, I think, we could actually make things work if we were listening to people.
Okay, one more question on this topic, and for now, and, I'm sorry. Renika, thank you.
So technically, this isn't a school committee issue, but I'm an epidemiologist. So I'm going to talk to the problem of the people on the street needing services. It's a problem of access. It's a problem of availability. It is a problem of shifting priorities. Like, this should all fall under the Department of Health, the Board of Health, and we are not seeing that. I know that DCC was supposed to be in instead of calling the police, but it's turned into like more of a social welfare group that is pretty much business hours only. What we need, we don't have a shelter, we need one, but we need something that is 24/7. People are not homeless 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And if you're going to only run 8-hour shifts, then you run them 5 to 2 a.m. when people are out because it's dark and they don't have anywhere to be. So I think it's an issue, once again, of priorities and what we have decided to prioritize as a city.
Just to sneak in the one part of that wasn't answered, yes, raised crosswalks and lane lines.
Yes, good evening. My name is Joanne, and this particular question is about Picture Main Street, and what will happen is something that I have not heard mentioned in quite a while. What happens if they start digging and they find more severely corroded steel vaults under Main Street? What is going to happen to our cost to have that stuff removed?
That is such an excellent question. You all are aware that we've had issues with the vaults because the vaults extend from under buildings on Main Street. They've been there for a long time. Some of them are still functional and people have stuff in them. And some of them aren't, and they've just sort of sat there for a long time. But the buildings own the vaults that are under Main Street. The one that's roped off now in front of the bank is one that has been found to be a danger, but
Meg,
yeah.
explain what the vaults are.
I know.
Not everybody knows.
Did-
Sounds like there's money in
It does, doesn't it? Well, what you didn't know about Northampton, go get your spoons and start digging. A vault is where you stick stuff, right? It's just, all it is that when those buildings went in, they extended them out under the street so they could have extra store supplies, or walk-ins, whatever, that they could have under there. Probably there are some old Prohibition ones too, I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of old whiskey stuck under there. But they are still used by some of the buildings. Some of business owners still do have stuff that's stored under there. But they're underneath, some of them are underneath pipes that have been put in afterwards. Some of them are on top of them. But you're right, there's a whole layer of old stuff under Main Street. And recently, we had consultants who came in, apparently, who did ultrasound down Main Street and a bunch of different things. But we haven't seen what the reports are of those. All we got was the report that one vault wasn't safe. And that's the transparency piece that we're missing about this whole project. If we have consultants coming in who found new information, I, for one, would like to know what it is. And who do I go to ask about that? Where would you go to ask that question? And where would I go if you asked me and I needed to go get an answer? And one of the issues is it's really hard to get an answer. There's no straight answers about this. And people are upset about that. They want to know what the cost is, they want to know what the challenges are, and they want to know what the what-ifs are around that project. We do know that there's a lot of old clay pipes, or old lead pipes that are in there that are broken up, and I think they were hoping just to lay the pipes on top of all that. But if the excavation has to go deeper, you're absolutely right. What happens then? It's pretty much a mystery.
Do you want to shift to
Yeah,
Northampton
now it's
schools and
time
funding?
for the next topic. For now, you can save more questions on this topic for towards the end. So now,
Northampton schools and their funding. Any questions for that?
I see three people.
Yep.
Hi. My question is forward-looking, and I know most of you probably share the view that the city can afford to move a good chunk of money into the school budgets, that we've been underestimating research. I think that's a big reason why all of you are up there and many of us are here. My question is, what happens if that can't or doesn't happen? How do we galvanize this electricity in the air around taking care of our schools better, that I think no matter where people fall on how you do it, I think everyone has been talking about it, everyone is serious about it, and I think there's this energy that we haven't seen in the city in a long time. So I guess feel free to answer it one of two ways, like either what else can we do, or just how do we do a combination of moving forward, maybe healing some of the disagreements and finding ways to just address the issue, even if we cannot do it via moving recurring 2.7 million year over year. I'd love to hear all your thoughts on that. It's a great question. I want to try to answer it in a few ways rather succinctly, and hopefully it will be helpful. The first is on this stage at the League of Women Voters candidate event, the mayor was asked to respond to the DESI findings of violations of IEPs. And her response was, well, we're going to all have to work together as a school committee to figure out how to meet those needs within our budget. So at our last school committee meeting, I invited her to have that conversation with the Budget and Property Subcommittee. She said yes, she couldn't make it to our last meeting. I wrote her today, invited her to see if she'll come to our November one. But the conversation that we had, Anat and our colleague Carrie, was how do we lay out a framework and a plan to actually, if this is what the mayor's saying, what's the framework or plan where we make decisions under these limitations, and how is she going to lead that process or participate with us in that process? So I think I want to use this as an example of the collaborative work that's always going on under the constraints we find ourselves. To the other issues around momentum and movement and energy, I think there's sort of a couple tracks. One is the legal track, right? We're under investigation by the Justice Department right now. We don't know what those findings will be. We still have to respond to a number of things in the DESI findings. And there may be other lawsuits that are brought, like sometimes those things are necessary to move change forward. Unpleasant, but sometimes necessary. And we're in federal court too, as you might remember, over a school-related issue. So I think the legal front is one, and the other is I don't see folks who have been mobilized and are feeling validated and seen for the first time in this city, who have been struggling with a lot of these problems and are particularly struggling with them now, being quiet, regardless of what happens in this election. And I hope that that energy continues and we can really have some conversations about our values and our resources and how they're aligned.
It's a really good question. It's a difficult question, right? It goes to the heart of the matter, I think. I've been on the school committee since January, and I've worked my entire life with children and families and in big systems and solving big problems and difficult issues. And I have to tell you, I feel like I'm constantly recovering from being stunned at how poorly we are listening to families and teachers. And we're saying a lot of words, and we're doing a lot of math, and we're talking a lot of buckets and budgets, but it's not really about that. It's really about a commitment to prioritize the development of our youngest and most vulnerable citizens who do not vote, who have very few rights, and who need us as grown-ups to stand up for them and to do the damn right thing. That's what this is about. And I think first of all, I also just want to say I'm so happy to be with all of you, my friends. I'm so happy to be with all of you, my friends, in this beautiful place. And thank you for coming and organizing this. And I'm so happy we have a chance to talk a little bit more freely. But, I made a note here, right? Because I'm thinking about this 24/7 now, obviously. And my note says the project of fixing our schools has the potential to bring us all together. Because fundamentally, what we have to do is learn to value our relationships. We have to value the relationships between children and parents, between parents and teachers, between children and teachers, between the administration and teachers. It is all learning and all development happens in the context of relationships, in the context of empathy and respect and being able to take perspective. And I, haven't said this before, and then I'll pass it along. I'm sure my time is up, but and I'm not out here like attacking the mayor, but I was really upset about something recently, right? Because when I read her answers to the CPAC committee, who asked everybody to respond to what they would do, right? It was like she made a turnaround. She said, well, we have to fix it, and we have to work together, and we have to do this. And I'm like, the parents have been telling you for years. They have been standing up there, crying, begging you to lead, to listen, to believe them. And that's not happened here. And so there's some fundamental things that we have to shift, and you gotta vote, and you gotta bring some right people in to do that.
Renika has a comment.
I could sit here and tell you that 44% of our students are high needs. I could sit here and talk all numbers and everything, but I'm just going to be completely blunt. We need a new city council and we need a new mayor. Because I have watched. Can you hear me? Oh, it's not. I got it. Okay, gotcha. Sorry. So I got you. So I can sit here and give you numbers and say 44% of our students are high needs, 24% have IEPs. That is actually not high. That is in line with this, right around the line with the state average. IEPs are legal documents. We are legally obligated to provide them. But that's all smoke and mirrors. The issue is in the numerous city council and school committee meetings I've watched, parents, teachers, students have pleaded, begged, even cried in these meetings asking for relief, only to be told, yes, we hear you, and we're gonna vote against you. We need a new mayor, and we need a new city council, and that is the only way we can really start
to move us forward away from this, because we see, like, we've seen it in the papers, like, so many people have lost trust in the process. They've lost trust in the mayor. They've lost trust in city council. They've lost trust in school committee. They don't believe that anything will change. And we can't use this momentum to move forward unless we can bring those people who don't believe that anything will help them with us. And the way we do that is we make changes and we vote and we put in people who listen to them.
Dan, I see two more people who want to speak up there. Jillian picked up first, or Amy. So we got Jillian, Amy, and Michele.
Thank you. My kiddo was in the district from kindergarten through high school, graduated in 2022, so been watching the schools all of that time. And I don't think that these issues are actually really new, but we do have an opportunity now. Things have come to a head. I think there have been issues for a long time. And as people say, they're not unique to Northampton, but this is where we get to bring all of our talents and our caring to do what we can here. And I totally echo what everybody else is saying in terms of the opportunity that we have now to really crack things open, to really listen better and to collaborate better, which is what is going to be needed if, you know, regardless of, like, the problems aren't easy, whatever path we have in front of us. And it is going to take people who really can listen well, who want to hear input, who are open, who welcome people in. And that hasn't existed here for quite a while. There's definitely people who do that, and then there's definitely people who don't, and we need more of that. And I really think that we have a group of people here who are committed to that, and we have an opportunity for some real change that is scary and exciting.
Jillian.
So I think the battery's low on this, which is, but anyways, this is why we need each other. We work together. To echo that, the people who aren't listening are the ones who hold all the power, which is why nothing is changing. So I just want to say that out loud. Somebody asked me recently why I am not running for city council first or school committee first, and I'd say that is probably the main thing, is that there is so much concentrated power in the mayor's office, which disallows all these wonderful humans who have been working really hard from actually showing up and doing the job that they know they could do for the people of this city. And I think above and beyond that, I just wanted to say how amazing this team is. And if you really think about leadership, leadership is not being the smartest person in the room. Leadership is really knowing how to identify the smartest people and bringing them in to solve problems. So that's just really shifting the energy and the way we think about things. But that's, you know, what I've done most of my life in every room that I've been in. And that's what these folks do too. I know Mike and Anat and Renika talk often. Everybody's working together. And then the people who come to the table, when we're talking about compassion and listening to people on the ground, I have a 4-year-old son. Nobody knows better than I do and his father what is best for him. So if you really think about it, the people on the ground experiencing these issues every day are the ones that know what the issues are and probably how to solve them. I talk often about how the most untapped resource in this community are the people who live here. So we have a lot, you know, I think we worry a lot about amassing all of these dollars because I think we have folks who are in power and in leadership who actually don't know how to meet problems in real time. But I really believe if we're bringing the right people to the table, we can actually invest what we have in people now and know how to meet the moment and solve challenges in real time.
So how about Michele and then one more school question and then the bio break? Okay.
So thank you, Jakob, for the question, because it's very relevant, right? There are challenges, there is an environment around us. We don't know how the economy is going to be, how much money, right? And I would say that as a parent, I would tell you that it takes a village to raise a child. And as an engineer, a manager, and a former city councilor, I will tell you, it takes a village to raise a child. So here is the village. So how are we going to do it? How are we going to do things differently? This, a conversation where we get together and is not anymore lecturing the voters that we know better for you. And you come to you feel the city councilor, oh, but I don't like your tone. Maybe what you say has merit, but just because someone has a higher voice, probably we should discount the merit of what you say, right? So what we're going to change, and we're doing it tonight already, other councillors could not make it, but this is what we envision for the city, where it's a village, and we all work together, and I hope that all the people, also the ones who don't win, will keep helping, because we need the wisdom of the crowd. It's proven. When you put together in a room people coming from all the spectrum, right? We pride ourselves of having rainbows, right, in this city, but then we should respect all the colors and all the opinions, and look at all the colors and listen to all the voices. And that's what's not happening. That's why we have a record number of people running, because a lot of people tell me, Michele, I wrote to my city councilor with a problem, and instead of receiving an answer, I got lectured. And that needs to change, and that's why we're running.
Okay, one more question on school funding. Northampton schools? Right over there? Okay.
Just picking up on a couple of points you mentioned about listening, but I'm wondering if in the listening you're also not listening to people's feet and moving out of Northampton or taking them out of the school districts. Not just parents of school-age kids, but teachers who were deciding to retire early. I guess a philosophical question here too is there a point where you feel that the desire to balance the needs or to meet the needs of children, families with a special need child, have to be balanced against the needs of the rest of the classroom, the rest of the school district? Are we balancing, regardless of the IEPs and the legal issue, when you come up with least restrictive accommodation, there is some discretion here. And has Northampton Public Schools made the choices, whether they have, and regardless of the amount of money they have, in terms of putting a level of disruption there of certain kids? And we see this in the Daily Hampshire Gazette today in a report out of the Fort Hill School in Amherst, where there's a disruption they've had there has led to problems in that community. We saw it here at the Bridge Street School as well. What philosophically is the right balance in terms of the societal insurance policy that we offer families to deal with their special needs kids, and the burden that sometimes those kids will place on the broader society and the broader group of kids in those classes?
Thank you so much for that good question.
But you saw it at Bridge Street School in the context of understaffing, right? We did inclusion in 2017 without properly staffing up the schools to meet the need. And so the inclusion itself is not the problem, and I'll let my colleagues on school committee who are more knowledgeable about this speak to that.
I'll try to be succinct too, because I know there's a lot of ground to cover, but I was talking to a constituent today at length about this very question. And one of the things that I found helpful recently was the case collaborative report that the district commissioned to look at our pre-K through 5 elementary special education programming, all of them. And the report was really validating for a lot of people. It really acknowledged the strengths that we have and the real weaknesses. And I think the story that it tells is the one that some of us know or have felt pieces of, which is there was this embarking on an inclusion program, which is really hard to do. And places that have tried to do it, it's been hard. And by that I mean including everybody in the same classroom. And really successful models need a lot of resources, a lot of training, a lot of planning, a lot of co-teaching. And we launched this and really didn't have that. And it didn't go well. So we're sort of been like going on this zombie path of like a partial rollout and then responding with adjustments for many years, right, with no holistic look. And recently, the Director of Student Services just kind of rolled out, coming into this fall, a return to sub-separate programs. And there are arguments for the benefits of all sorts of models and visions to meet the needs of our students and our staff and all the kids in the school. But again, it was done in a way where I don't really think we had community buy-in. We didn't really have a philosophical vision or mission. And there really hasn't been the leadership or really, frankly, the political desire to have these types of conversations or really think about where we can go. And I think we have an opportunity right now to do that. We're going to have a second report from the same firm on the secondary schools that's going to come out later this year. And I think once we have those, we really need to think about this. And I'm going to ask Anat to say something, but one of the highlights, and this is why I want to transition to Anat, is they really highlight the profound lack of trust within the community, particularly the special education community, with the schools. And we really need to do a lot of work around family engagement in order to repair that trust and in order to find the solutions we all need. And I know this is something Anat has experience with, and hope she can say something. Oh, sorry.
I do want to touch on the fact that most of the positions lost were actually not special education positions. So we're cutting positions for general education too. We're cutting general education, but most of the positions were not special ed, they were general education. So we're losing classroom teachers, so we're putting these elementary school students, young, first graders, in bigger classes. That's not conducive to anyone. And I think that, like, even though we're shining light on it now, one of the things that I've been talking about is the fact that we as a city have left the middle school to the wolves. And I say this all the time, and people are like, what do you mean, Renika? I mean that we have about 1,200 elementary school kids, about 1,000 9 through 12, and then we have 500 to 600 at JFK, 6 to 8, because a lot of people leave the district in middle school, and so we have just consistently not lived up to our requirements for our middle schoolers, and then we expect our high school teachers to do more with less, to the point where they had to find money to hire 2 teachers, or they weren't going to have kids were not going to be able to take classes that they need for graduation. So we have literally just cut everything, not just special education, everything to the bone, and now we are seeing the results of basically over a decade of telling the teachers to do more with less, and now they cannot.
Yeah, I just, sorry.
It's my turn.
Oh,
yeah. I'm not sure I heard a lot in your question, and I'm not sure I completely understood it. But part of what I heard was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard you say something about the balance in the schools and the overwhelming needs that we seem to have. Is that right?
The issue I was referring to in terms of balance was the question of what is the limit at which you can say responding to the needs for an IEP, or the quest for accommodations within a classroom. Where the quest for accommodation in the classroom ends up having a consequence for the rest of the classroom there, and the ability to teach. And is the need of the individual of that individual on an IEP or a special education plan, always going to outweigh the needs of the rest of the classroom?
Yeah.
And where is the balance
Thank you.
there?
And I appreciate you clarifying it. See, I look at it a little bit differently. So, I mean, I think underlying your question is a fact that we have, so I work in early childhood, right? I run the Head Start program for community action. And I have seen the needs of children, birth to 5, get more intense year after year after year. Right now, over half of our infants and toddlers have special needs, and 30% of our preschoolers have developmental disabilities. And those kids go to public school, obviously, right? So I think there is a larger question about what's going on with our kids. and what's going on with our families, and what are the kind of stressors that our families are in, economic stressors, social stressors, emotional stressors. Our families don't receive the support in our society that they need, right? And so there's that larger question underneath what you're saying. But I think in terms of inclusion, I look at it a little bit differently, because I think, I mean, it's a theoretical question what you're asking, because it is what it is. The kids are who they are, and it is our job and responsibility to make our environments maximally loving and inclusive and supportive. And I feel, and again, this is my opinion, that we learn a lot from that, right? Because when you make accommodations, or I don't even talk about it like that, right? But when you make spaces, when you make schools, when you make learning environments spaces where all children can thrive, it teaches all the children about humanity. It teaches all the children about love. It teaches all the children about their own strengths, right? I'm not saying it doesn't take enormous resources, and it does. That's real. And we as a city gotta make a decision to do that.
So I
now
just
you can
wanted to-
talk.
Thank you. Well, see, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, which is that we need a much better dynamic between the school committee and the city council. I mean, you have the expertise in the schools, what the issues are. Over on the council side, we're going to need to follow that, with care and concern. And I've learned so much, particularly from Mike and Annette. I mean, like, for example, if we spent more on early intervention, particularly with reading, that actually saves us money later. It's not only fiscally wise, because we're not having to give kids more individual attention later. It's also, there's the human cost of someone being participant in school rather than hating every minute of it, because they're not just not reading, they're not getting the subjects that depend on reading. So we're going to need, a lot more conversation and collaboration between the school committee and the council. I mean, we need to get you the money, and you know where it needs to go. Some of the other factors of that, though, I mean, we talk about turnover in administration and teachers, and if you give someone a job responsibility and you don't give them the budget to fulfill that, they're going to get fed up and leave. And and you're not going to. The next person you hire is going to last for a year before they get fed up. So a lot of this comes back to the money. I mean, and the school committee has expertise within the schools, but the big thing on the money, there's a lot of people in this race who are like, we need to get more Chapter 70 money from the state. I would love to have more Chapter 70 money from the state. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Northampton needs solutions that Northampton can implement here with our local priorities.
Okay. So at this point, it is 7:03. So let's reconvene at 7:18. I'll give you 15 minutes to take a break, stretch your legs, walk around, and then we'll come back and talk about municipal budgets, city council mayoral relationship, and administrative leadership in the city.
I want to talk about housing. Talk to me during the break about housing.
Almost on schedule. It's not perfect.
I want to introduce you to my mom. My friends, 2 more minutes, or really a minute and a half now, because I wasted 30 seconds. And we'll get started with the next subject. And the next subject is going to be city council, mayoral relations, etc.
Okay. Do you want to bring us back? Do you want to bring us back? Or should I do it? I mean, it's up to you. I'll call you right. Okay. So we'll wait for her, yeah.
Very good. All right, next one.
So yeah, this one's kind of the threefold.
They know what it is, this guy, gentleman.
Yeah.
All right, sweeties, will you please take a seat and get yourselves comfortable? And Dan is going to review the next topic, and then we'll take your questions. The candidates will take your questions.
Okay. So the third topic that we'll spend roughly the next 20 minutes on is municipal budgets, city council and mayoral relationship, and the administrative leadership in the city of Northampton. So, any questions for that? Well, after this topic, let's, oh, okay.
Thank you. So this topic I was thinking of before you chose it. There are an unprecedented number of candidates running this year, as you know, and while I hope every single one of you up here wins, thank you. But the question is, do you think that all the education, the forums, the dialogues, and everything that happened during these campaigns will or won't affect the tone or the way our city government functions and how those who are elected interact with the public from here on with Northampton residents as a result of these elections? Thank you.
Can I just clarify the question, Shelley? So are you saying whether we win or lose, will the process of this election have changed the communication in the city?
Exactly. Do you think it will or not? Go ahead.
Some people call me the catalyst for what's happening right now, so I feel like I'll take this question. I mean, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be following what's going on. If I don't get elected, I'm going to be making radio shows and videos and staying on top of it and ensuring that community dialogue continues. And I know that no matter what, the school committee is going to be much better. And that will continue to be a forum where we can really hear from the public. But if you do elect the establishment candidates, I do think they will continue to just take it on the chin and ignore you, no matter how angry you are or how outspoken you are.
So I think one of the things that's happened, and it's really, it was precipitated by the school kind of funding when that disagreement blew up a year and a half ago, is that so many people in the city know so much more about how things work now. And there are so many places where there were decisions that were just being made in a way that we didn't even pretend there was a decision there. It was like, it was treated as just like the road goes this way, and the fact that we blew past 4 or 5, branches in the road without even talking about the fact that that was a decision. A lot of that is opened up now. There's a lot of it that's still not being talked about, and that's very, obscure, but, there are budget spreadsheets floating around. People are talking about things. There's numbers that are in those spreadsheets. There's also numbers that are not in those spreadsheets. There's missing columns. People talk about where does the money go? Well, the other problem is where does the money come from? There is money that, sort of just appears in our schools, in our departments, that doesn't go through the general fund budget. We don't really have a visibility into that, so if it goes away, we don't know, what makeup we would need for that. And so, these are topics that I think people running for the city council, running for the school committee, want to be working on, and we're talking with each other about them. We're talking with voters about this and concerned parents every day. But I really hope that tradition of, civic interest in how does our government work, is the information flowing between the administrative branch and the city council and the school committee, between the school administration and the school committee, and between all of us or all of whoever ends up sitting in City Hall and, all of you as the people of this community. We work for you, and if you don't have that information, if all parts of our government don't have that information, then, we're not having a government of the people. We're just having one person says, this is what we're doing, and no, there is no decision there. This is just the way we've always done it.
So I just want to zoom out a little bit. When I was sitting in is it the green room? In the green room?
You can tell we've never had one.
We've never had one. With my friends, I was sitting there, and I was thinking about how there are people who are not going to have food because the SNAP funding is going to be cut. And, here we are at this nice forum and fighting for really important things while this hell is raining down on us. And it's going to get worse. And a lot of us, I think, are running. I don't want to speak for anybody here, but I know across the country, people are very, very mobilized because of what's happening at the federal level. And I do think, and Mike has talked about this really beautifully, I think that there's a parallel process going on. The kinds of things, right, that the left is fighting about, the supposed left is fighting about in Northampton, mirrors the larger political conversation that's going on in our country. And I think that's important to keep in mind, and I think, the reality is that all our fates are tied together, all of them, whether we like each other or not. The fates of the children with disabilities and the children who don't have disabilities. The people who don't listen to parents and the people who do listen to parents. Our local people and our state people and our federal people, our fates, we are all in this boat together, for better or for worse.
Is that okay, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to echo a few things. I want to echo what Quaverly said and Chris said. I do admire everybody banding together and really getting up and fighting for what matters to them, voices from this community that have not been heard for a very long time. I will also be there as well, doing the same thing, finding other ways to give back to this community because I'm raising my son here. I live here. I'm committed to this community. I love this community. But I just want to say, it shouldn't be this hard. I think And we're exhausted. And to Anat's point of all that's shifting and changing around us, we have a lot of work to do on the local level to rebuild systems to make sure. I'm kind of excited about it, honestly. Like, this is an evolutionary time in my eyes that we've had broken systems for a long time, and we can actually rebuild them in ways that take care of our community. And we can lead the way for other local governments to do the same. I think we really need to shift this top-down way of moving, and we can start here in Northampton and build from the ground up. But, you know, I'm so, parents who have been fighting and fighting, the energy we take from them to actually be able to navigate their home lives and be with their children because they're at school committee meetings, we need to give that time back to them. We need to be working together, and we need local officials that are going to show up and do the work. So I just want to put that out there.
I just want to add a few things to what's been said. I agree with my colleagues here, my friends. But I really do feel like we're at such a moment in the country where people are getting mobilized, and we're seeing the inability of centrist Democrats and the Democratic Party to actually respond right, you know? And if you look at this as a microcosm of that, you know, today we had the mayor, right, endorsed by the governor, both of whom felt that it was appropriate to lower the flag for Charlie Kirk. They're showing us that they never know how to fight the right fights, right? There's a reason why the Western Mass Area Labor Federation rescinded their endorsement of the mayor. And there's a reason why labor is endorsing all the folks up here, right? This is a strong tension, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance among people who see themselves as quite progressive and believe that progressive means progress, like picture Main Street and trickle-down economics. And they can't understand why people are critical of them from the left. It must be because they're mean or they're attacking me personally, and it entirely stunts any sort of real discussion or work that could be done. And it obscures so many of the class divisions within the city, so many of the racial, you know, fault lines within the city, so many of the disability fault lines within the city. And what's been beautiful about the last few years is the real solidarity that people have come together around these common struggles, the support that they've given one another, and the resources that they've developed together with very little money, right? It is a cross-class, cross-racial, cross-ability coalition of folks, and it's exactly what we need to resist the times we're facing now. As much as those in power say, no, that's not the way, right? That is the way. That's always what has worked to fight fascism, and that's what we need now.
And I'll just finish by saying we had a visitor today at my house, a woman who came up in her car and knocked on our door and introduced herself and said, I don't know who to vote for. So she drove to our house she wanted to talk. And she started out by saying, I wanted to talk to you because you're an elder. And I thought, oh, God. But, you know, there is reflection on that. I look out here and I see my friends and neighbors who I've known for many years, and I also see my friends and neighbors who are new to the community and who have added so much to it as we've come in. We had a really good discussion with this woman. We invited her in. We sat down. I'm really sorry I didn't make her any tea, but if you saw my house right now. But she had a lot of really good advice on what needs to happen in terms of her viewpoint. She's not lived here a long time. She retired here. I think she lost a partner. This is where she ended up, which was about listening together. It was about making that change happen. If you've lived here for a long time, you know that we weren't paying close attention because we didn't have the struggles that were in front of us that we have in front of us now. Before the woman left today, after we're having this conversation, she gave me this really cool bead thing, which I thought was for arthritis or something. She took it off her wrist and gave it to me. She said it's for good vibes. So I'm going to wear it, and anybody who wants to borrow it and have some good vibes for a little while can take her words with us. But we can make change. We can talk to each other like regular people. We can have town forums. We can have places where we go to the communities that make our city and find out what's important to folks and how we make change and what's possible and what's a struggle. And why we haven't done that in the last 50 years puzzles me. This is a great start.
So what has been kind of sticking in my craw, right, like, is the charter section where I can't go to my counselor for help on information, for finding information, to support me. I mean, so far, it's just been pathetic. I'm sorry, but, you know, and I'm very afraid of Michele not winning, because I feel that the city councilor running against you would only represent the mayor, the current mayor, sorry. I was curious if any of you win, and I hope and pray you do, would you focus on changing those laws between also maybe the executive power so much in the mayor's office, but also the charter, which limits your abilities to represent the people that you're supposed to represent? Sorry for going on.
So I think part of the attention to this issue came from me not being able to see the general ledger, even though I'm a city councilor and even though the council oversees all of the spending. And the charter was changed to say that 5 city councilors need to ask for information together in order to get it. And if we had a better city council, then we could get the information. We could also change the charter so that that never happens to us again. Because it's not normal. In other cities, any single councilor can subpoena any information or any person that they need to talk to. I mean, we're supposed to be overseeing city government, right? We have a mayor who runs city operations, and we have a school committee that runs school operations, and above both of them, we have a city council that needs to know what's happening and needs to represent you and be your voice, because as has been said previously, we work for you, right? You are supposed to know what's going on in your government. You are supposed to be able to say what you want us to be doing with your money, and you can't do that unless you know what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's not widely understood that under the charter, an individual city councilor doesn't really have any more power than an individual citizen. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of sort of, you know, systems of courtesy and of deference where, you know, the city council could get this information, but it's not a power in the charter. Or, you know, people call up their councilor because of potholes or ice-covered streets or something, and, you know, the city council doesn't actually, one individual doesn't have the power to do anything about that. I mean, they can, you know, hopefully they can make a call and you know, get a response to that, but it is, as we found out, you know, that opportunity is a tradition, but it is actually not a formal mechanism of the city. And, you know, we can't have 9 people telling the DPW what to do, of course not, you know, but we do need to establish a balance between, you know, what are the traditions of, you know, at least getting the information through and the concerns through, and then what are the formal mechanisms where, you know, the council can require information or, you know, require a change in policy, even if it's just by the power of purse, and, you know, we're going to approve this or not approve that based on, you know, things. So I think there's a lot that we really need to think about as a community about the balance of power between our executive and our legislative. And, you know, by the legislative, I very much view the school committee as like a parallel, a peer city council for running the schools. That, you know, you in the area of the schools do basically what we would be doing for the rest of the city.
Just very briefly, So the mayor is automatically also the chair of the school committee. And I think that's something that could work if you had a mayor who really, really wanted to lead the schools. But I think it's a very tricky setup because in our current situation, the mayor, and everybody addresses her as mayor, nobody addresses her as chair. She's the chair, right? It's her job to have a vision, to facilitate, to praise us once in a while, to say, I really appreciate all the hard work you've done. Never, ever have I heard that pass her lips, ever. So she acts as the fiscal gatekeeper. That is her job, and I don't think that's right, and I don't know if that was the intention of that charter provision. Maybe it was the intention, but I think we need a chair who can lead.
Thank you. I would say my prior experience as city councilor, I was city councilor in Italy. There is direct election of the mayor, pretty much like here. But I was surprised when I started getting involved in city council meetings and finding out that the city council could only remove money from the budget and not add. I was surprised because my experience was, as a city councilor, I had to, the mayor was presenting the budget to the city council, and the city council was supposed to approve it as a majority. And I wrote basically amendments to the budget proposed to increase and decrease money and move money around. And of course, it was up to me to get buy-in by my colleagues in the city council. So I was very surprised, and I felt that we did not have a healthy check and balance between 9 people versus 1. Right? So we march for no king, but again, that we don't want we have no queen, right? A little bit, right? So we want to have the same thing. And I would say that this is more a philosophical point that I think is not necessarily related to the charter, but the challenge we're going to have, and be patient for us, right? Nobody is expert, right? We're taking time from our family to do this, right, for the community. So, and also the people who are running now, to be fair to them, it's much more difficult to run a city than a business, right? A business, you need to maximize the profit and all the shareholders are happy. Here, we're all shareholders. We all own 1 share of the city of Northampton, right? And it's difficult to make everybody happy because it's not about just maximizing profit, right? We don't just want to maximize taxes on you. We want to balance all the needs. It's very complicated. And I would say that for us, the complication for any elected official is when a piece of paper is presented to us and we need to vote, right? At that point, I'm supposed to represent Ward 1, but I will also affect the entire city with my vote. So when I vote on something, do I vote based on what I think is right, or do I vote based on what the majority of my ward thinks is right? That's why I think we need to more and more, again, do these sort of gatherings, town halls, because we need to reset, because we are going we were going to have a natural bias, right? I come with my own experience and I think that this is right, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the majority of my ward agrees with me. And actually struck me, one of the people I talked to, we were in a house party, and mentioned, Michele, are you going to have a newsletter, right? So, I'm thinking about it, but what would you like to receive, right, as communication? Is that, the current city councilor sends a newsletter explaining why, what happened, but not why he voted in a certain way. And I would say that the process should almost be even before voting, gathering the opinion of the people and say, how should I vote? Right, this is coming. How do you think we should vote? Right, because I might think that, yeah, this makes sense to me, but maybe it doesn't make sense to the people. And then you need to, you need to manage a lot of people who are unhappy with your decisions. So it's probably better to be proactive and collect the inputs, right, and the feedback. I just recently went through a management training. It said that feedback is the essence of intelligence, right? So we learn through constant feedback. You need to seek feedback from other people, open to, especially the voices that are discording from you, that don't agree with you, because that's how you grow, right? People who you surround yourself of yes men, right, or yes woman, then you don't really grow, you don't learn anything, right? So I hope you answer your question.
Okay. Do we have any more time? I just have, it's going to be hard to keep it to 2 minutes, but I'll try and keep it to 2 minutes, but okay, go. So many things to address, so many great points up here. But to Anat's point around being the chair of the school committee, I do very much agree. I have committed to, opting out on budget votes. I do really think it's interesting that, I believe it to be a conflict of interest. I think the school committee should be working together to put together a budget that they actually need, and that it does fall to whoever the leader is, to the mayor, to say yes or no, and then take accountability for those choices, right? We have somebody who's not taking accountability, but placing that blame on the members of, say, the school committee for not giving the right budget to fund our schools. So, and to the point of compassion and being a leader and, sharing when people are doing really well, another part of that, and I talk about this all the time, is how we'd be having such a different conversation of when those 26 pink slips went out originally to educators, that we actually had a mayor that picked up the phone and called those educators and said, hey, listen, we're having some real budgetary issues right now, and I really care about what you've done for our community. You've shown up, you've done such good work for our children. I'm gonna fight tooth and nail to make sure I can keep you here in our district, but if I cannot, what can I do to help you? Can I write you a letter of recommendation? I have relationships outside of the district. Is there somewhere where you'd like to land? Now, this is leadership. We would be having a very different conversation around this conversation if that were the way we were being led. And I've learned this. I used to run restaurants. I've run teams for most of the 20 years that I've been working, even though I'm 37. But those are the pieces. I used to have to let people go, and I would just make sure whatever we can do as leaders, because we have all the power, what can we do to support the people around us and make sure that they thrive and that we remove those barriers? And in terms of balance of power, absolutely. I think it's really interesting when people want to make decisions alone. I had this experience when I came on as the executive director of the Downtown Northampton Association. Essentially, the way it was structured is that the executive director had most of the power. They just reported out to a board. I brought that structure to a nonprofit structure and built out committees. But 3 months in, I was the interim director. We had this choice ahead of us. So back to Picture Main Street, the No Picture Main Street group was going to present their alternative plan in front of the city council. And then City Councilor Jim Nash came unannounced to my 3rd ever board meeting and sat down and said, hey, listen, I'm here because I want to ask the DNA to come out in support of the mayor's downtown redesign project. To which I said, hey, Jim, thank you for coming. We have a full agenda. We haven't considered it as a board, but we will let you know. And he still comes up to me every time he sees me. He's like, remember when you kicked me out of your board meeting? And I was like, yes, I do. Thank you, Jim. But then that was the first time that we really worked together as a board to make a decision, and it was really hard. The DNA has always been looked at as an economic development arm of the city, and it has aligned itself under other leadership with the decisions of the city. But we really had to, our community, which was the downtown business owner community, was divided. And we really had, I led them through a discussion around how we were gonna align with our constituency. And to do that, we had decided that it was not our project. We were not gonna come out and publicly support the mayor. But what we were gonna do was whatever the mayor decided, yes or no, or how she was gonna move forward, we were gonna support downtown business owners through that process. And it was really great not to have to make that decision alone. All right, my 2 minutes is up.
Could I
But
say
anyways,
something
I
real
just want to
briefly?
share that balancing power makes a lot of sense with making decisions for a community.
1.5 minutes.
1 minute? I'm gonna count.
After giving me 1 minute, I'm going to speed run this real quick. I just wanted to say, put a finer point on this. For folks that don't realize, the charter and Massachusetts state law combine in our executive, the mayor, all the sort of executive power and all the budgetary power. So this is like Trump's dream, right? The federal government wouldn't be shut down. It would just be his budget went through no matter what anyone said in Congress, right? That's what we have locally. And that's why there's so much frustration. The other point is, I kind of love Nicolay's thing that he brought up, because I'm constantly having this conversation, which is there are many competing theories of democratic representation. And the one that we hear all the time is the mayor got elected 4 years ago, so whatever she says is democratic. And that's one theory of democracy and democratic action. There's many others. I teach modern political thought to students and political theorists. We could talk a lot about them, and I love that he's like, well, how do we think about this? What is my role as a representative? How do I engage? These are all the core questions that have been with us for 300 years. So I think we need more of that and more thoughtfulness, and I just really appreciate it.
That was exactly 1 minute. Okay, so at this point, ask the candidates anything. Let's open up the floor. There we go. Okay. There's a lot of questions here, so I'm sorry. I saw all the hands. Yeah, I saw. I'll go with you, and then I'll come back to you. And then, sorry.
Hi, I'm Adam Cohen. Question is about property taxes. If you look at Northampton real estate listings, properties have been sold, you will generally see that when a relatively expensive home has been sold, the sale price is often a lot higher than the most recent assessed value. This is a national issue, and it's an issue in Northampton. And essentially it means that our property tax system is pretty regressive. I'd like to hear what you do to make that more fair.
So one of the things is that I think that some of the assessments really are catching up with sale prices. I mean, I look at the assessment on my home that I became a first-time homeowner 2 years ago after being a tenant all my life before. And, the assessment's pretty close to what I paid for it. So I think some of these things are catching up. I think the other thing that's not really widely understood is that the city changing the assessed values doesn't change the overall tax income of the city. It just moves it around the city. And some of the times those have been indeed very nasty surprises for people, particularly if they had a very out-of-date assessment that caught up. Also, when the assessed values go up across the city, then the tax rate actually sometimes has to go down so that we're not taking in more money than we're allowed to under the law. And, so the people who didn't get reassessed, are their taxes actually going down, maybe a little more than they should, particularly if it's businesses and things. But yes, property tax is a fairly regressive way of taxation. And, unfortunately, Massachusetts right now, we fund our schools, entirely with property taxes. I would love to see the state, move more of that to income tax, but, that's not something we can solve in this city. In terms of, the things we can do, the state law really constrains, how we can do property taxes. I mean, we could split the commercial tax rate from the residential. That's probably not a great idea in a city that has a relatively, we're 80% residential or something. We would need to have more business before we could do that. Otherwise, we push people away. There is a senior low income exemption, but unfortunately it also has an asset limit. So it's not just your income, it's if you have any savings behind your home, you really don't qualify. So yeah, I mean, someone, as Quaverly just said, someone who has a traditional pension would still qualify, but if you have, an IRA or 401k or something, you're disqualified. Those are areas where petitioning the legislature for like a special provision applicable just to us could be an idea, but that's not going to be a fast path to a solution. Another thing that's out there is a resident credit, where we sort of exempt the first few $100,000 of a home value. That then actually increases the tax rate because we took part of the value off of that. So there's a break-even point where less expensive homes pay less, but more expensive homes pay more. So that, that would not be an easy political conversation. The big problem with that is that the resident credit currently doesn't apply to rental property, so it also pushes up rent. I believe one community was able to get an exemption, petition the legislature to do a version of a resident credit that did include rental property. So, that could be something to look into. But these are really complicated topics and, very difficult conversations because some people do better and some people do worse. But, I would love to be a city that would talk about these things and would, talk to our legislators about getting more options on the table for us and for others. And I've now talked a lot, so I'll let someone else talk.
Let's
Just one
as
very
soon
short
as you're
thing.
done,
We could be tracking who's remodeling their homes and really increasing the value, right? I want to audit who we are reassessing and when.
Thank you. Next question.
So speaking to some of the issues we've heard on transparency and budgeting, I'm wondering if folks can explain to me some of the tangible mechanisms to change them. So for instance, I agree the 5 counselors to get access to a ledger is egregious. Same with not being able to add to the budget, only decrease. And I think you spoke really well already, Ms. Duclos, to the school committee question, but what are the paths to changing that? Do you need a majority city council vote? Do you need to work with the mayor's office to make those changes? And what commitments are you willing to make right now to making those tangible changes?
I'm going to be straight with you. I have to look that up again. Last time I researched it, there were many different avenues. So like our city has every 10 years we look at it, but we could pick it up sooner. You can get the governor to approve a charter change. You maybe get the legislature to do it. I think there's a few avenues. A petition, a referendum. Anyway, let's do it though, right? Let's figure out the fastest way and do it.
I mean, one piece of that we can do is the opt-in to chapter, whatever it is, 329 of the Acts of 1987 that does give the city council more power to fund the schools, though we have to have a mayor sign it initially to kind of acquire this tool and put it on the shelf. And then after that, the city council could do it without the mayor. But yes, we could talk about changing the information request to not, require 5 people. We could also just elect 5 people who will vote for the information requests.
Awesome.
Good evening. I'm Mike Deno. I live over here on Ryan Road. 70 years old, been in this town my whole life. I go back to Wally Pachowski, the building's named after him down there. When I was a little kid, I worked at a vegetable stand. Wally Pachowski came by and bought some corn. And I remember that's the mayor, So anyway, the thing is I've been around here for a long time. I like what I see here. I like the table, I like the forum. I wish we had like 1,000 people here because my concern is, I don't know if we got enough gravity. I like to think I'm not connected or anything like that, but I'm involved with a lot of people in this town all the time. I don't like what I'm hearing. I don't believe this is going to be a walkaway for anyone. The thing what I'm hearing is that the establishment is in better position than some of these progressive candidates here. I don't like hearing that. So, if we are going to carry the day, which is the prize we're all after, we have to make a decision here and now going forward to get these people elected. That's what we've got to do. We have to get them to show up. I believe they're talkers, they're thinkers. I'm hearing this. Thank God Chris can't take pictures. He's probably one of the smartest guys on the dais here.
Are you saying because you're a photographer and he'd run you out of business? Or?
I don't want to compete with Chris on pictures. But I really like, in some of the school committee, I wasn't familiar with you people, but wow, the way you carry yourself tonight and your engagement and your openness. We need to do our work. I'm going to, I have a fairly large Facebook. Good for me, right? And I'm supporting Quaverly, and we're going to be doing some work there. But what I'm looking for this is the way we're going to carry the day, is we really need to get together as a community. We need to elect these people here. And how we're going to do it, I don't know. There's smarter people in the room than me, but that should be our goal.
Next, maybe another question. A lot of folks have questions.
All right, my name is Linda Gothier, and I'm really, really tired, and I didn't have a chance to write this down, so bear with me, please. So many things that you guys said is that individuals don't get listened to, and I live in what will hopefully be Chris's ward, and most of the people don't even know that we exist on Glendale Road and our challenges that we have on places that are much further away from downtown. The previous city councilors at large, when I called and reached out, they didn't even know where I was. I referenced streets and problems. They didn't even know they existed within the city of Northampton, and they were off the main road. So coming around to Pitcher Main Street, but not Pitcher Main Street. One of the biggest things, if you look at the blueprints, is Pitcher Main Street isn't from the Academy of Music to the Roost. It goes above that, encompassing. See, told you, really tired. So Route 10, Route 9, Route 66, that intersection, they have specifically planned to make it twice as bad as it already is. We all live up 66. It's our only way home. And it's bad in the winter, and it's hard, and it's dangerous right now. I had to cash out my 401k so I could get four-wheel drive because of being in front of Smith College, that little up, it only fits 3 cars, you can't straighten out when you're in it. I get stuck there every time on the way home. And no one is heard when we're talking about that intersection. The new building now then puts another driveway by St. Mary's Church at that intersection. No one I've talked to will even look at the blueprints of that intersection. The only thing people are talking about are pictures, illustrations, versus the actual blueprints. All of us that live further out, when you talk about our footprint, our climate goals, that's how much I drive my car. I don't drive it often. I bike 5,000 miles a year, but I should be able to use my car. We should all get to use our car when there's only 8 hours of daylight.
Thank you so much for these comments.
So I'm just going to say that one of the things that hasn't happened with Picture Main Street is something people are really weary about. It's at almost 75%. It's gone to the state. It hasn't been returned to us yet with comments. We don't know where it is. We don't know what comes next. We don't know how the funding is. We don't know a lot of don't knows. What we haven't done, despite being told a million times that we have had 63 meetings, is it hasn't been taken to your community. People haven't asked you that question. It's a major change for the entire city. It impacts everyone, and that has to stop. There shouldn't be anything that happens in this city that doesn't have community feedback that's deep, that's thoughtful, and that takes in those changes and decides, can we do this, or can't we do it, or does it need to be different? And all we hear at this point is, it's gonna be fine. So just relax, have a seat, it's all gonna be good, and come back in 10 years and tell us about it. That's not okay.
Yeah, I think that's very evident in the plan, that this was sort of a politically dictated vision, and it's not really informed by a detailed understanding of the city or of traffic flow or of even the crash data. I mean, it's motivated by counting the crash data, and if you just take the raw number, yes, we have problems, but a raw number doesn't tell you what the problems are. So, to Linda's point, I mean, the intersection with West Street, yes, that's part of the problem. It's a complex intersection. It has 5 streets going into it. There's no easy ways to do that. I've learned details about it, like, well, the left turn onto State Street, if you're going down the hill, that goes at the same time as the crosswalk. And that works because they're not in conflict. You move the crosswalk to the other side and suddenly you've created a new conflict. If you look at the bike crashes downtown, they are overwhelmingly in the intersections and they're caused by people surprising each other. And you can't even really say it's the driver's fault or the bicyclist's fault. It's just the fault is the fact that there's surprise. So we need bikes where they're visible, not hidden behind parked cars in part of the sidewalk space, where that also creates, conflict with pedestrians. But that is one tiny, tiny part of the city. Linda's even further out in Ward 6 than I am. I mean, she's very nearly in East Hampton, shall we put it that way. Main Street is also Route 9. It's our way to anywhere. And if we say that, people are not going to drive on Main Street, that sort of is a severe limitation of mobility in Northampton. Even if you're talking about someone, trying to use a wheelchair or a walker, we desperately need to fix the sidewalks downtown. I mean, we shouldn't be subsuming that into this project that's going to push that off to at least 3 more years of suffering there. But for someone to even access that, they have to get there. And unless you're in one of the limited areas where we have bus service, that means you're getting there in a car or a minibus. The buses are already queuing to beyond the length of the bus stop area that would be in the project. I mean, there's more buses queuing than would fit there. And this sort of hyper segmentation of the design that means that only the really reserved part of the bus stop area you'd be able to unfold a wheelchair lift on. Okay, it adds a few more accessible parking spots, but the ordinary parking spots are no longer usable as overflow. And so it's not a design that really responds to an understanding of our community. It's a kind of cut and paste that they've put everywhere. And yes, I will take my timers now.
How? 1 minute? Yeah, so hi, my name is Nathan Chung. You guys know me. I work in government, but here speaking as a ward for residents and member of the public. So there was an incident specific with Member Stein for me. I made a public comment in February at the school committee. He emailed me during the school committee meeting, and we got into a little debate. And at the end, I proposed that we meet in person and stop the emailing back and forth. And he basically said that our values are not aligned, it's a waste of time to meet, and he refused to meet with me in person. I did put in a strong condition that he let our neighbor listserv know. That's the thing, you talk about collaboracy, yeah, so I don't see your behavior in what's behind the scenes match what you say about transparency and collaboration, especially with marginalizing minorities. Can you explain, what is your ultimate intent, with your activities behind the scenes, combined with your, frontline activities?
I'm sorry, can you please, can you clarify your question? Can you say it again, please? What is?
Yeah. Member Stein, I don't find that what you do behind the scenes, censoring people, refusing to talk with your...
What is the question, please? What is the question?
Can you not interrupt me or not, please?
No, I'm really trying to get at the question because I hear you making a statement and we heard you.
My question is then, all right, Member Stein, I don't find your outside behavior in these types of big public meetings match what you actually do behind the scenes on Facebook and emails with constituents. Do you agree or not agree with what I'm saying?
I think you're entitled to your perspective on our exchange, and I am too. And when you go back and forth and disagree and then say to me, we need to meet and you need to make a public statement to a listserv that we're gonna meet, it is such a strange and inappropriate demand for someone to make. And because I'm a representative doesn't mean that you get to have access to me in exactly the way you want under the conditions you want. It's very disrespectful. And the idea that you're generalizing from your own experience to then make weird assumptions about intents that are lurking in everything is what I'm hearing from you, is very strange and unsettling. And I've let you know this a number of times. And I've let you know that the sort of manifesto that you've given to the city council and all these other folks alleging this big thing that you're again here saying I don't feel like it represents reality. It certainly doesn't represent the reality of my experiences with these folks and most in the community. I understand you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way, but we disagree. And I understand you value a lot of in-person conversation, and I also understand that you work for this administration, and it's complicated. And I'm sorry you don't feel represented, but this is how democracy works sometimes. And I think you have to live with it and accept that we disagree about some issues. I don't know why you feel it's so inappropriate that when you came with statistics that were false, I sent you an email as your representative saying, hey, by the way, here's the actual numbers. I don't understand why that's so upsetting to you. And I don't understand why a rejection to say we can't meet in person under your conditions is upsetting. And I find it very strange that you continue to sort of grind this axe in a way that's like a version of like a strange character assassination all the time. I don't know what else you want me to say.
Hi everyone, my name is Gaurav, Ward 6, also far out near East Hampton. Thank you so much for what you're sharing today. I've been in a position where my representatives don't represent me at all. I've had the pleasure, good fortune of having folks like Mike Stein and Quaverly fight for the basic needs of my family in this city against a really, what has seemed to me like a really almost despondent, dictatorial political culture surrounding the mayor. And so what my question is how, I appreciated what Mike was saying about the forums and what other people have been saying, but my question is really, hopefully the majority of you will get into office. What can we, meaning you and us, do to continue transforming the political culture of this city, which is not a culture of self-reflection, of mobilization, of commitment to equity? What can we do to pull this culture out into the rest of this town? Thank you.
Renika.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I think that we need to get more people involved. I've always focused on like health and education in my career, but I've learned so many different things running for office about zoning and housing and everything. And then I also learned about the commissions and all the commissions we have and all the ways that people can get involved that are bottlenecked by mayoral appointments. So many things that go through these commissions that are important for us rely on people being appointed to them, and the mayor has the final say of who is appointed to commissions. So we need to, in that, we need to work on getting people involved, and that is one of the ways you start, and we need to make sure that like these appointments don't languish, because some of them have for a long time, or that they're not just given to friends of the people in power.
Okay, just before we continue, we got a couple more questions left, but just please be courteous when asking questions and be cognizant. Let's ask the questions maybe in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, because we'll try to get to the last few here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm curious to hear some of you speak to the issue of affordable housing in Northampton. A little bit of context, I'm a renter. I'm really excited to vote in this election, and I might not be here in a year because I can't afford it.
Oh my gosh, can we talk about affordable housing in the sense of just the cost of living for everybody? I think that our city is exacerbating the problem. I think that we are driving up the cost of rent. I think our planning department, to her point about the commissions and who's appointed to things, the planning board, the planning director, the mayor, they are all pushing through luxury developments that are driving up the market rates. And I think those have no place in our community right now. I think that the city should be doing not a goddamn thing that makes anything more expensive. I would rather them do nothing than do that. What's the point of having zoning if you're not using it to protect the people who live here? Period. So I talk about this a little bit in the Ward 3 Neighborhood Forum. We can talk about it more, but the policies that we have are based on this false idea that housing will just trickle down if we flood the market with supply, no matter what that supply is. And it's not true. It maybe works in very densely populated areas like Boston over the long term a little bit, But what we see in Northampton are immediate harms. So I want to see us investing in the mom and pop landlords who are keeping rents low. I want to see us not overtaxing them, not overcharging them, helping them if they have a maintenance problem, whatever we can do to keep them being the people who are renting to you. And also, we want to help you buy your own place. If that means that the city is going to build housing and make it a place that you can buy, if that means that we're going to build housing so that we drive the market down and we say, oh, you're selling for $600,000, we're selling for $200,000. See what happens. That's what Nashville's doing. I'm tired of the trickle down. I really am. And I don't like that they sell it to you under the guise of we're fixing it. We're doing what we can. I think it's very deceitful.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to go to this person right here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eve. I want to ask a question about a huge problem that Northampton has, and that problem is L3 Harris. If anybody doesn't know, L3 Harris is the 6th largest weapons manufacturer. They make technology used by the Israeli government to commit genocide. They make technology used by ICE to kidnap our neighbors. And here in Northampton, they make optical technology that can be used to launch bombs and even nuclear weapons. I don't think it's ethical for us to bring in tax dollars that are predicated on the killing and violence of people somewhere else. And we've heard from officials that there's simply nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. It's impossible and illegal. So my question is, will you take no for an answer on this question, or will you try to pursue all possible avenues to impede their ability to make deadly weapons in our community?
I will not take no for an answer. I will take the work of environmentalists who say, hey, we want to get rid of this thing that's causing toxicity. I want to take their advice, I will take their model, and I will apply it to things like weapons. And I will say, we want to get rid of this thing that's causing harm. And the city has an executive order that said we would not be engaged in any contracts with anyone who's in nuclear weapons manufacturing. And I think that the tax is a contract. So I don't think this is something we can keep doing. Anybody else join me? Anybody else? I mean, listen, some of my constituents are going to be worried when they hear me say that because they're into manufacturing, right? And they need those jobs. So we need to also switch to ethical manufacturing. But absolutely not. It's not okay for the city to just throw their hands up. Not in Northampton.
Yes, hi. My name is Dominique. I live in Ward 1 in River Run. And I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate this meeting. And actually, due to a problem that we have in River Run, I get to learn so much about how the city function or don't. It's so many loopholes and so many things that are not connected between. The main problem is we are having right behind this River Run community, which is one of the most affordable community in Northampton, with 286 abutters. There is right now tier 1, 5,000 square feet cannabis facility and manufacture, with intention to grow up to 40,000. And all this very silently, it's just slowly building up. So now planning say everything will be revised, and the problem is none of the departments are interconnected between them. So basically, when we permit a certain business to operate, we need to have enforcement that that business can really be respected and work for all the resident also.
So on this, I'm just going to say that your new counselor, your Ward 1 new counselor, Michele, I know has come to visit with you. He's arranged a community meeting with people from River Run to be able to hear about the concerns that have been brought by having a marijuana cultivation grower. It's down by the river, it's down by the old marina, who seems to have crept and created that provided space bigger and bigger. And if you haven't lived next to an open marijuana cultivation plant, it's not a pleasant experience, and it has an impact on everybody who lives in River Run. And it's a real crime that, in fact, you have not been heard by your councilors prior to this, and that the city hasn't come in and taken action. Because bringing cannabis into the city comes with a lot of responsibilities on health, on safety. We have income from it, and I'm so glad that you and Michele were able to connect while he was knocking on doors in your neighborhood. And we're really looking forward to being able to bring that up as a change factor that matters to people whose voices don't get heard.
Quickly, I would say that this is an example, and we can expand it to everything, city politics, right? Once you set a law, right, businesses naturally will try to find all the loopholes. So I think it's in their nature to maximize the profit, right? It cannot, that's what they do. So it's up to us, right, to make sure that if a piece of legislation intends to prevent uncontrolled expansion of certain businesses, right, that we change it if we see there is a potential abuse or a distortion of the intended legislations, right? It's up to us to hear you and modify. And there is a way probably to modify that if you make an expansion under 2,000 square feet, you don't need inspection. So what do? You expand 1,900 square feet, right? And next thing you know, this thing it just grows like a mushroom overnight, right? So what you do is that you change the legislation saying it has to be 2,000, but if you keep adding a short period of time, it accounts as going over the 2,000 limit, right? So that's why we need to have a lot of conversation as a community, because our policy making can be flawed, right? It's only through your feedback that we can make it better.
Hi, I'm Jamie Guerin, and I have the honor of having Quaverly represent me in Ward 3, and she has been the only city councilor who has ever listened to me about anything, which it really surprises me that these candidates up here people are saying that you're like attacking people and being uncivil, and that's not what I'm seeing, like, at all. At all. I'm seeing you communicate with people, and then I see people attack you one by one, starting with Quaverly to Mike Stein to now Meg Robbins, and it's just, you're handling it with such grace, and I really appreciate that. It's just, I don't understand how this conversation is so backwards, where you're being painted like you're attacking everybody, and all these personal attacks are coming at you. And I just want to say I really respect the way you're handling it with such grace and such dignity, and I could never do that, and I appreciate you running very much. Thank you.
So my question is about the audit of the city finances, and I know, Quaverly, you've tried to do this a couple of times, and it's been shot down, and which I find really odd because it's pretty readily apparent that there are some irregularities in the city budget, to say the least. So I guess, simple question, what do y'all think about a full, transparent audit of the city finances?
Can I start with this one?
I think that's the first thing. I mean, people keep talking about, what's going to happen on day one. I think, one of those things is to talk to each person who works for city government and really understand what they believe is working and not working. I've talked to so many people who have worked under this administration that have come to them with actual ways to save money, to do things in a more operational savvy way, and have been turned away. But yes, absolutely. I think that I get so frustrated with this example of, the mayor finding money for these teachers when they lost classes at the high school that students needed, right, for graduation. And then she went to the IT department and said, oh my gosh, I went budget line with the IT director, and we found $217,000. After everybody had so much anxiety and wasted so much time, and time is money, my friends, like for all these people, these administrators and educators, parents and students that could have been focused on doing things to actually take a step forward that made sense. And to me, that is not doing your due diligence as the leader and the operator of this city. That money should have been found during budget season. This has been the biggest conversation for 2 years, so yes, absolutely.
And I know it's getting late. and maybe getting a little testy, but since you brought up that particular example, right? Just recently, right? One of the write-in candidates blamed the school committee for not being able to find that money in the budget.
Thank you. That is
But
true.
the mayor doesn't let us
Here we
talk
go.
to the IT director,
Please,
right? I mean, she's in
we're
charge
at,
of that.
Thank you, Jillian. We're at 8:20, so that is our last question. Thank you all for being here. Let's give these folks a round of applause and yourselves.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Joan, for doing this. You really killed it, bringing the community together, letting people know what was happening. And
Thank you,
Cassandra and Dan and everybody who made this happen tonight. Thank you. And
Yeah.
Matthew back there on the mic.
Yeah. And I would like to invite you to get somebody's text number. Like, stay in touch. If there's someone whose question you liked, we're a community, and it's important to keep building it. So thank you.